What unsolved mystery has absolutely no plausible explanation? I lost my student ID in high school, and some girl I didn't know found it in her pillowcase. Edit, wow, I just logged back on. I didn't go to the laundromat and went to an all-guys school. The girl was a student at our sister school and we had a few mutual friends. My husband and I were once on a MAX train in Portland when some stoners got on and sat across from us. They were all loudly bored and hungry, and one of them was scrounging around under the seats. As we watched, he pulled a McDonald's bag out from under the seat a few sections behind him. That bag was full of food. He began distributing burgers to his stoner buddies, until the last guy said no thanks. I don't like burgers. Then the guy reaches into the bag and says that's okay. Here's a chicken sandwich. And he hands his buddy the last item. The bag had exactly enough for them to each have a sandwich, and adequately fed the guy who doesn't eat burgers. I still think about it. I think that was Jesus. Nah, he would have fed the whole train, and there would be leftovers. He was the second coming of Jesus, but then he got high. In Australia 2008, an olive grove of 400 trees was stripped of every single olive overnight by hand. The owner, who lives on the grove BTW, says it usually would take a team of 6 a full 3 days to harvest the grove. He heard nothing overnight, no machinery, and found not a single olive on a tree nor the ground the next day. None. I can't imagine the size of a team of silent thieves picking and hauling 4 tons of olives in a single night. The owner says he knows of 5 other similar raids in the area accumulating in 7.5 tons being heisted at a value of $10,000. The numbers here are just confounding, the number of people it would take to do the work, not get caught, and for such a comparative measly payoff. Source: I got this, 18 men did it. It was overnight, call it 6 hours, average workday is 8 hours, they'd need 33% more people, make it 24 men. 25 for good measure. Or 20 good men. Ah, the infamous Sir Tundi Goodman. I had a wristwatch that my dad bought me back in the 90s, it was one of those kinetic watches that would wind itself when you walk, etc. Anyway, for some reason it kept stopping at around 1:30 a.m., never 1:30 in the afternoon. Sometimes it would keep going, but 3 times out of 5 it would stop at the exact time. We sent it to the swatch company to get repaired, and a month or 2 later we got a catalog of watches with a handwritten note basically saying, "We don't know what the hell is wrong with your watch, we're stumped, pick a watch out of this catalog and have it as a replacement." So that's my possessed watch story. I was waiting for you to say, then one day your dad died at 1:30 a.m. I'm glad your dad didn't die at 1:30 a.m. I thought he was going to get a bunch of new watches that all stopped at 1:30. Would been creepy as duck. But nope, lol. I had one of those incredible Hulk face ice creams you get from the ice cream truck. I took a bite and watched as the rest of it fell off the stick, only to look down and see nothing on the ground. I still don't know what happened to my ice cream. I want my money back. Edit, didn't expect this to get so much attention. I love you all, but replying to all comments would take me years. Cool to see others having similar experiences. I read a similar story on Reddit. Dude was drinking coffee from a mug, dropped it. No sound from it landing. Never found the mug. Maybe all the particles lined up just right and it fell through the floor. Makes me wonder if this ever happened to a person. Guys, don't jump. Edit, I found it, I dropped my mug onto the floor, accidentally heard. Reddit.com. I actually have a very similar experience. It was move-in day for my dorm. I got a single room. I got into my room and dropped my 2 bags on the floor and set my dorm key on the chair. There is nothing in this room besides a bed, desk, chair and my 2 bags. I laid on the bed and heard the key slide off of the chair and hit the floor. I get up to pick it up and it's gone. A tiny room, no place for it to hide. I had to buy a new key for $125. I looked for it every couple weeks, and when I moved out and the room was entirely empty I still didn't find it. I even pried apart the chair. I lost a piece of my sanity that day. I lost a TV remote in my room. Tore the room apart. Picked up the futon mattress and flipped it over. Put it back, checked around again. Finally gave up, sat down and saw it sitting plain as day in the middle of the futon. Edit, after hearing all of these stories I've determined that Todd Howard was put in charge of designing the Matrix, and it's just really buggy. My mom inherited a watch from her grandmother. It was the old-fashioned kind that needed to be wound all the time, obviously. Anyway, one day it went missing, and despite turning the house upside down, she couldn't find it anywhere. In the end she just accepted it had gone. Cut to a few years later, and we had moved house. We'd been in the new place for about 6 months, and one night she woke up and turned the light on, and the watch was sitting on her bedside table, wound and showing the correct time. She totally believes in ghosts and is confident her grandmother found it and brought it back to her. Edit: Mum and Dad were separated, and I was the oldest kid, about 10 at the time. My brother was 6, and my sister 4. Not one of us. I was thinking that's one really polite thief who had his time with it already. There's gotta be a reasonable explanation for the disappearance of Brian Schaffer. He was the medical student that walked back into a Columbus bar just before closing and was never seen again. Only one entrance patrons and staff used to enter and exit, and one emergency exit. Both have surveillance cameras. Lots more info here in a great video rundown here. There was a dark construction site underneath the bar that led to the aforementioned emergency exit back side of the building, which had a CCTV camera pointing at it. Bloodhounds couldn't place him anywhere, and he's not seen on any CCTV footage around Columbus or Ohio State University. He was supposed to go on vacation with his significant other days after he disappeared. I don't buy that he disappeared on his own accord. This case still baffles Columbus police, and I don't know if we'll ever find out what happened just after the Ugly Tuna Saloon closed on that fateful night. Shout out to Kaylee Elise's YouTube series Dark Matters, where I learned about Brian's case. This happened a few years ago to my brother and my mom. It was parent-teacher conference at my brother's high school, literally the largest high school in the US with about 6,000 students, and after waiting forever to finally meet with the teacher, they walk in and sit down. The teacher then says that our father was just in there right before them, and my mom was shocked and told him that there was no way. The teacher insists that he just walked out and gives his name and a perfect description of my father, very tall man with a lot of freckles, brown hair and a thick mustache, and summarizes their meeting. My mom then informs him that my father has been dead for over 10 years and is in disbelief. The teacher had absolutely no background of our family and no way of knowing this, has shocked himself. To this day we have no idea what happened that day. He faked his death, but still wanted to check in on his kids from time to time. That is just as unsettling as the idea of a ghost, if not more so. 110% more unsettling than a ghost. I was given a potato in school, cannot for the life of me remember why, and I was having a weirdly good time playing with it. I went into my room and started throwing it up in the air and catching it, but one time I threw it up, it just seemed to inexplicably curve backwards over my head. I heard it thump on the ground, but when I turned around to pick it up, it was gone. I spent 10 minutes looking everywhere for it and it just wasn't there. When we moved house a year later and I was emptying my room, I fully expected to find a gross, rotting potato somewhere. Still, it was nowhere to be found. I asked my parents and even my sister if they'd found and got rid of a potato in my room. Nobody had any idea about it. I'm going to spend the rest of my life wondering where the hell that potato went. Its job was done. It went on to find another child it could make happy. The Fairly Odd Potato. I went to visit my mom's house to go say goodbye to my dog before my mom was going to take him to get put to sleep since he was really sick. I didn't want that to happen yet, so I was arguing with her about it for a while. At one point my dog wanders off and I don't see him for a while. I couldn't find him, figured he was out chillin' in the horse pasture as he was wont to do. It was dark and he wasn't coming when I called. I just thought he was doing his thing. I was sad I couldn't say one last goodbye, but I had to get going. I walked to the front of the house where I was parked, and the little asshole was in my car, sitting in the driver's seat looking at me with that stupid look he always got on his face when it was time for a car ride. I started crying right then. I'm crying right now. My windows were all the way up, my doors were locked, I had the only key. To this day I have no earthly idea how the ducky got in there. God, I miss that fucking dog. R.I.P. Barky. But did you give him a car ride? Once I composed myself, yes. We cruised out to the levee and hung out together one last time, listening to all the frogs that came out at night. It was nice. That was a long time ago. He's been gone longer than he was alive at this point. That ducks me up. Shit, man. Be happy you gave him a good life though.